Hey, welcome in.
Welcome to the Arrowhead Addict podcast.
We are here coming to you live. The Kansas City Chiefs are going to the Super Bowl. You only win a Super Bowl 2 times every 5 years, right? Oh! The warm-up act is over. Let's bring in Melissa Etheridge, massive Chiefs fan. Melissa.
Super Bowl champion, 2-time Pro Bowler, and Trent Green. Trent Green, how you doing?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
And he picked it up! He picked it up! He's gonna score! And we'll see you next week, but until then, as always, go Chiefs.
Welcome into the Arrowhead Addict podcast on this beautiful Tuesday afternoon. I am Sterling Holmes, joined by JB Brisco. A lot of news happening right now, obviously in the NFL and especially in Chiefs Kingdom. Check that. Nothing is happening.
Oh, nothing's happened last week? Hey, you know what, Sterling? The way this offseason's gone, that's a good thing.
It is a good thing. But with not a lot going on, there is one thing going on, and that is Caesars Sportsbook is looking to cover your first bet up to $1,000. New customers will get a second chance bet up to $1,000 when you sign up with our promo code Arrowhead1000. That means if your first bet loses, you'll get your full wager returned as a bonus bet up to $1,000. Caesars offers daily profit boosts as well as Caesars rewards credits on every wager, which can be redeemed for bonuses, sports tickets, and other VIP experiences. Signing up with our code Arrow1000 not only covers your first bet, but gets you access to their fantastic rewards programs. If you're looking to join Caesars, go download the app and register with the promo code Arrow1000 to make sure your first bet is covered. This offer is only available to new customers who are 21 plus and physically present in legal gambling states. And please remember to always gamble responsibly and check the episode description for the full terms of the offer to see if you qualify. Brisco, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good, man. Again, not a lot going on this week, which is all in all for the best. We've still been finding the things, not to do such an early cross promo here, but over on SI Chiefs, we've had to find the things that we can talk about. And what it really is, man, at this point, it's like the same 5 guys on like Breakout Watch, or maybe this guy finds a bigger role, or this guy is underrated. So a lot of like Leo Chanel, Drew Tranquil, Felix Anudike-Uzomah talk, a lot of Trent McDuffie love. But that's just kind of been the tone for this last month or so. And we're still a little bit away from training camp. So go ahead and soak up these quiet moments, because it will not be quiet for a whole lot longer.
No. I'll go and say my unsung player for next year. Oh, yeah. Unsung. Dude who I think takes a big step forward that's not being talked about enough. Josh Williams.
Not deep enough. Nope, we wrote about him yesterday, I think.
Williams.
Nope, not a deep enough cut. No, I was literally going to say, like, and it can't be the guys I mentioned or Joshua Williams or any of the linebackers. Like, you got to get to Jack Cochran levels. You got to none
Cam
of the
Jones.
receivers. Cam Jones, breakout candidate. That's what we're talking about here. But like Joshua Williams is probably going to start in week 1. I'm going to find where he went. Somebody had just wrote about him as a high upside. Might have been like a Bucky Brooks situation. Sure was.
It was.
Bucky Brooks was like
great
Joshua
name,
Williams breakout. Oh yeah, incredible alliterative name. That's the thing where we're at now, and I feel very comfortable being honest with the viewers and watchers and listeners of this show, because they've also probably been pretty plugged into the Chiefs matrix for this last month. It's a lot of the same stuff cycling around right now, and until you figure out some new angle. But that's what we get paid for, and that's why Sterling has a new angle you haven't heard yet. Sterling, let him hear it.
Yeah, if your name is Bucky, what do you think his real name is? Buckenold?
Thanks for joining us here today on the Arrowhead Addict podcast. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that follow button. Talk to you next week.
No, I guess for me, one of the more intriguing talking points that's a little not overly talked about is how will the Chiefs win or focus this season? First year they won the Super Bowl for them was offense only. Second year was more balanced. Last year was, quite frankly, more defensive orientated.
At least throughout the regular season, like easy.
Yes. And so for this upcoming season, as a try and three-peat, they will be the favorites again. How do they enter this year? What's the overall game plan? Where's the emphasis? Is it on, well, we brought in Hollywood Brown and we drafted Xavier Worthy, so now we're trying to swing back to offense? I think the obvious answer is they would like to be balanced. That's, I think, what every team would like to be. And I guess that brings up the question is, defensively, can they still do what they did last year? And how realistic is it? Yes, they lost Willie Gay Jr., a minor piece, which means a larger role for Leo. Yes, they lost L'Jarius Sneed, but there's still a lot of optimism in the secondary. My thought is, even if those guys were still around, they were top 3 defense last year. Top 5 at the absolute worst, but I think a lot would say top 3. How sustainable is that back-to-back years with that sort of success defensively? So I guess I pose and wonder and question, does the defense stay the same? Do they take a slight step back? And is the offense with the additions enough to weather, again, just the normal football routine of you had a phenomenal year, things somewhat went your way, you might just have to count on a slight step back?
I like the alley-oop here. Also, by the way, just noticed, loving the mic stand. Good work by you. You're not having to hold the mic anymore. You look professional. You got a boom arm there like I do. It looks great, Stu. To your actual question, you ended up beating me to what the joke was going to be for me looking at the Chiefs' defense, which is that they lost Willie Gay Jr. and L'Jarius Sneed, and and that's the list. Like, if the run it back campaign after the 2019 season, winning it in 20, et cetera, if that run it back campaign had been successful, if it hadn't been derailed by the injuries leading up to the Bucs Super Bowl, I think we'd be talking about this being like run it back to defensive boogaloo. Not on the offensive side. There are changes there, obviously. But defensively, they're keeping, I think we may have talked about this a couple weeks ago, but they're keeping their front 2 line starters across the defensive line. Starters, backups, all the same guys. Somebody else we could talk about Felix a little more if you want at some point. I wrote about him. I don't know if it went up yesterday or today, this morning, but I can't remember. But like the hype for him is circumstantial because the rotation hasn't changed. He's going to have to break through the same group still. Amenahu probably missing the beginning of the year. He missed the beginning of last year too. But the linebacker group, you go, oh man, and we've talked a lot about Willie Gay. After we talked about Willie Gay, Seth ended up going on like a Willie Gay appreciation tour that I think is a good thing. I think it properly highlights how good he was in his usage when he was used here in Kansas City. But now he's gone, and that matters. It does. I don't want to just say it's 1-to-1, Gay to Chanel. They're different types of athletes, both great athletes, but different types of athletes. Sneed's obviously the big one. And even with him, I want to be careful with this, not because I'm worried about hurting anybody's feelings or anything, but because it's a little bit of a fragile balance of what we've said about Chiefs defensive backs throughout this administration, Steve Spagnuolo and Dave Merritt in particular. They make corners better when they get here and develop here. I think that implies that it certainly implies that other teams don't develop as well. Is L'Jarius Sneed going to be the same player in Tennessee that he was in Kansas City? Is he going to look like maybe the Titans, I'm going to put air quotes around overpaid because it was a future third round pick. I don't think they overpaid. But is it going to look like, yeah, that was actually probably about the right value, large part because of some of the knee concerns, which I think is probably the biggest reason that Sneed ended up getting dinged in the trade market. But with all of that being said, L'Jarius Sneed's a fabulous football player. None of what I'm saying right now is a legitimate knock against him as a player. But if you think they got 110% out of L'Jarius Sneed, and if he's just 100% in Tennessee...
No, don't do that. My least favorite thing is 110%.
If they got 10% more out of L'Jarius Sneed than the next best situation, if they improved on L'Jarius Sneed's output by a good 10% compared to the team that would have got 90% out of him, if the Chiefs got 100% out of Sneed, and then he goes to Tennessee and is just 90%, sterling, then if you're also getting 100% out of Josh Williams or Jalen Watson or some training camp cut-down candidate who comes in and ends up getting a bunch of snaps and plays really good football, because it seems to always be the thing that happens, I think that could be less impactful than, at least I would say, than the worst half of the outcomes. I'll take a positive side of the bell curve for how that pans out for the Chiefs too. So all of that is absolutely rambling, which is fine because there's no actual news happening. But all of that to say, the Chiefs defense is missing 1.5 starters from last year's ideal matchup or ideal lineup now. And Snead to Williams is a drop off. Data Chanel might not be because of the way they used Willie Gay. So we call it close to a wash. That matters, but every defense in football has somebody they couldn't bring back. Everybody has a drop-off somewhere. If you buy the trajectory of the young players on the defense, I don't think you're going to see a drop-off. If Chris Jones has a disastrous season 1 year after signing a big contract, which I don't think is going to happen, if he drops off with age, that's a problem. It's a bigger problem than losing Snead. If Derek Nottie and Mike Pennell and Tershawn Wharton take a step back or just age, Wharton less so than the other guys, but he's been a little bit of a different player since coming back from his injury. You can find ways that individual players regressing hurt this team overall, but the unit is remarkably similar. 9.5 out of 11 starters, really 10 out of 11 starters in sub packages. That means more than I think it's gotten credit for. And so I think the defense should still have very high expectations this year. Internally, externally, whatever. The offense has changed significantly, which may be a different angle on that question, to say that I think, of course, they're going to try to be balanced, as you said. That's ideal. But I think they have the pieces defensively to keep that up.
So I don't disagree. And my point was that I don't see the defense taking a large step back. I'm just basically saying, can they still be top 3? Like, we've seen great defenses still have the same players. Same.
It's hard to be a top 3, top 5 defense in back-to-back
that's my
years,
point.
no matter what. Yeah,
that's my whole point. Is
absolutely
was last year the pinnacle of what we've seen the defense as. Again, I'm going to say a top 3 unit. Let's just say they're 7th, right? Again, great defense. I'm not expecting some massive fall. I'm just saying if they're 7th, what does that do? How does it affect the offense? How does it affect the team as a whole? Just game plan and schematically, how does that change? Because last year it did seem like, especially the Ravens game, I think is a perfect example of this. They just said, all right, we're just not going to make a mistake offensively because our defense is going to shut your ass out. That's what the Patriots used to do with Tom Brady. And I was laughed and said that game specifically gave me a larger appreciation for Brady of basically saying, well, he's a check down merchant, or he only had how many yards, or what did he do in this game? But I go, well, he didn't force it. He didn't need to. The only thing you can do to take yourself out of that game is make a stupid decision, incomplete pass. The clock stops. And so for me, that's why I think it was a learning curve for Mahomes and I think specifically Andy Reid last year. And we saw that. And I'm not saying it was perfect. I'm not saying they didn't want to score more points, but I think they were very conservative for a reason. But that was all because the defense was, again, at that point, the top 30 unit in football. If they take even a minor step back, just based on the ebbs and flows of having to put together now what would be a top 30 unit for how many games would that be? 37 weeks in a row now, because 20 weeks plus 17 before you get to the playoffs. That's damn hard. That's my major takeaway here is how will they adjust. I'm not worried about the loss of Snead a ton because I thought Charvarius Ward, I know people are going to give me shit for this. I love Charvarius Ward.
He's still a very good football player.
He got better, by the way, when he went to the Niners.
He's very
or
good.
At least he got his recognition that he deserved. PFF all of a sudden graded him a lot higher. Take that as you will. But my point is they found a way to move on from, at the time, I think the most underrated cornerback in football, and including a top 10 cornerback in football, and they replaced him. Defense actually got better, right? I'm not saying the defense gets better. I'm just intrigued to see what Spags does. It's why you pay the coaches. It's why they matter. It's why when you look at the Eagles and you looked at all the players that were still there last year, but the defense, especially the secondary, was atrocious. What was the big difference? Well, they lost their DC, right? I'm nervous with Mizzou. When they lose some of their coaching staff, I go, yeah, a lot of the players are the same. But what happens with the coaching staff? The Eagles are the best example of this. But the Chiefs don't have that when you still have the core, when you have the coaching staff. And you and I have talked about this, and we went through it, I think, last week maybe when we were talking about Dave Merritt and Andy Heck and all these guys. That, to me, might be the catalyst and the most important thing we point to for success. Look at the U.S. men's national team right now. Players can change, all that. They can be the same players, but coaching and organizational structure is the most undervalued, underappreciated aspect, and I think, of all of sports. And the Chiefs, truthfully, have one of the best organizational structures in any sport.
Yeah, and I was going to mention Spags next, even before you kind of highlighted that point, so where I think we're in a similar headspace. Good news and bad news for you here on that angle. The good news is that I think you're very, very correct in pointing to Steve Spagnuolo and specifically the rest of the assistants being there is great. But for where I'm thinking now, I'm thinking about Spags because they do have the stability and the creativity that has proven itself multiple times over the course of Spags' recent NFL career. You can go back to the Giants days, but just take them in Kansas City, or even just with this last 2-year stretch of these players in these last 2 back-to-back Super Bowls. There's great news in there. The bad news for you, the bad news for us, the bad news for Chiefs fans is that I don't know that you're going to be able to prove any of that for a good 6 months. Go, wait a second. 6 months, that's January 2nd, right? Yeah, that's when we're getting into playoff mode. Because that's something else. Another shout out to the aforementioned Seth Kaiser, who I'll be solo co-hosting Only Weird Games with today over on Casey Sports Network. 4:30. Nate is at Wimbledon right now. You can follow his wife on Twitter.
Is Wimbledon?
He's overseas. Don't make me expose how little I know about.
I know it's tennis. Like, I know it's tennis, but it's like,
it's not a golf.
I assume England somewhere. That's very England.
He's over there somewhere. So anyway, me and Seth will talk about all sorts of things, perhaps including something we talked about as he looked into the way teams have run the ball against the Chiefs, and you always get these sort of like, run the damn ball, just run it down their throat, keep Mahomes on the sidelines, all that stuff. Not just in time of possession stuff, but even in terms of the usefulness of running the ball consistently. He had a great piece on that on the newsletter. I think it's unlocked for everybody. We'll talk about that more today. But part of the reason people end up back on that, like, oh, just run it against the Chiefs sort of fallback come playoff time, is that is not what they prioritize as a defense throughout the regular season, because that's not the way to win football games typically. You want to build your pass rush and your secondary, and you want to try to control opposing passing games. And if you have Patrick Mahomes and a functional offense, the option to run the ball late in the game may be taken from them. But come playoff time, all of a sudden, Leo Chanel is on the field running straight into linemen, closing down holes in your offense. And you're going, oh, this was always something this team could have done. Could have done. Yeah. It's always something this team could have done at any point along the way, but it's about matchups and what you're prioritizing and how you're strategizing throughout the regular season, come playoff time and all of that. Where you're going to put your focus, where you're going to put your matchups, where you're going to put your effort. And the fact that the Chiefs have been able to do that and answer so many of those questions in so many different ways over the Steve Spagnuolo era, I think is incredibly encouraging for this defense still being very, very good in 2024. And really, the early days of 2025.
Yeah. I guess good call. 2024. That's weird to think about, man.
No,
we're
more than halfway done with this year.
I just got used to writing 2012 on my report card, so I have no idea what to do. Yeah.
I mean, and you're already writing 2077 on your checks just because that's where you're already at mentally, writing paper checks.
I actually have a check right. I have my checkbook right next to me. I almost put it up and I realized
I almost reached back. I have one order of checks that I got several addresses ago that I still have, same account number and everything. So I just will use that if I need to like grab an account number, do a little voided check. I guess I've written a check with it a couple of times, but I think I got a stack of 250 and I've used probably like 5. I almost reached back though and grabbed my one. I was like, oh, nope, I do not want to show my bank account information on this live stream.
Show me.
Now. I'd love to see yours though.
Give me.
You want to do this? You want to go letter for letter or number for number on our account number? Like I'll just read the first digit. You read your first digit.
These are 5 in my number. There's a 5.
There's a 5 in there somewhere. Is that what you're saying?
Fiver.
There's also a 5 in mine somewhere.
Ooh.
There might be more than one.
Phantom 1090 says case in point. KC's defense shut down the Ravens running game in the playoffs last year. Yeah. When they wanted to shut them down and focus on that, they did.
Exactly.
It's just Spags is a wizard. I've died on this hill of whatever happens in the regular season. When it comes to stopping the run, it doesn't really matter until the playoffs, because if he wants to shut you down in the run game, they can, kind of to your point, though, they understand the best way to beat the Chiefs, truthfully, is you got to outscore them, which is going to be through the air. So they go, hey, that's fine and all. Even if you average, I mean, I think what people don't realize all the time, if you average 4 yards, 4.5 yards a rush, that's great and all, because that probably is being buoyed by an 8 and a 7. But the second you have one rush, that's 0 yards. Second you have a rush that goes for -1. Well, now you're behind the sticks, right? It's not that every time you touch the football with your RB, you're getting 4.5 yards. If that were the case, then yeah, of course you would run the ball against the Chiefs. But that's why it's so hard, because even then the Chiefs get you one negative play. Now you're forced to pass, and you're forced to go up against an electric secondary that's very deep. And I think one of the talking points I actually brought up with Jason today, what Spags, Dave Merritt, and the Chiefs with Brett Veach and draft, and what they do so well is they don't put their players in spots where their weaknesses can be exposed very often. Like the last guy I can remember that was Dan Sorensen / to an extent Tyrann Mathieu in the whole business decision situation, right? But as far as actual secondary, they always put these guys in a place to succeed. Like whatever a guy does well, they focus on. If you're a box safety, if you're better coming down and blitzing, well, they're going to use you that way. Mike Edwards, you were great dropping back into coverage. They're not going to use you the same way as Brian Cook or Justin Reed. Like, there's something to using your guys where you're going to put them in the best spot possible to have success. And not every single team does that. Some teams, like, you know what? You're our CB2. You're out there every single snap. I don't care. You're doing it. The Chiefs are like, okay, well, Jalen Watson was better at this, and Josh Williams is better at that. We're going to find a way to make you one full, complete player, right? Travarius Ward, L'Jarius Sneed. L'Jarius wasn't traveling with cornerbacks. He was a slot corner, then he moved to the outside. Like, they ease you into what they think you can do. They don't just throw everything at you and say, learn, learn, learn. They ease you into it. And I do think there's something to that. And it was, again, kind of to my point of why I think Williams is going to have a breakout year this year, Joshua Williams, because they've somewhat eased him in. They haven't let him flounder. They haven't let him just have to learn everything at once. They've gone kind of year by year, feeding a little more. And then eventually, these guys take over because they know they can do it. Because they've seen the success. It's almost like golf or anything. When you think about the negatives, you have all these negative thoughts going through your mind. Well, that's hard to have to be successful. But you start thinking about all the positives you've done, even if it's minute, even if it's a smaller sample size. But you're like, well, I've done that before. I can do that. But that's because they were only making you think about one thing on that certain play. They didn't put it all in your dome, and now you're overloaded like Sky Moore. Maybe they need to take a look. Wide receiver room needs to take a page from the defense.
Or slot corner Sky Moore. I don't know.
Good point.
Bad point. Don't give me credit for that.
He's got big hands.
What you can't give me credit for here is I'm pulling some numbers along your running lines. And again, this you can go read this. This is unlocked for everybody, even if you're not a subscriber to Seth's beautiful newsletter. mnchiefsfan.substack.com, which is the most recent thing. And these numbers originally started with Tej Seth, who's a great analytics Twitter follow. I'm going to read you some numbers here, and I'm going to hopefully in ways that aren't audio poison. But here's the consolidation of when teams run the ball not in the red zone and only on early downs. So we're taking away late down runs that you may only need 1 or 2 yards, or a 3rd and 12 draw, whatever, that might get you 7. Trying to cut the noise out here. When you run the ball not in the red zone and only looking at early downs, here are the most common lengths of runs in the NFL. So if you're running the ball on 1st or 2nd down, 2 yards, 3 yards, 4 yards, 1 yard, 0 yards, 5 yards. You know, they say when you throw the ball, 3 things can happen and 2 of them are bad. That's a bad saying, and that's not true. But when you run the ball on 1st or 2nd down, 5 of the things that are most likely to happen, 4 of them are bad. And that's obviously not counting fumbles, turnovers, and the like. But a 2-yard rush happens 12% of the time. A 3-yard rush happens about 12% of the time. A 4-yard rush, about 11%. You'll take a 4-yard run on 1st down most of the time, but then it's still 2nd and 6. That's the best case scenario out of those top 5. So let's say it's 12, 24, 34, 40. More than half the time, he may have done this math. I was listening to it earlier. How about this? 43.9% of the snaps, teams are getting 3 yards or less when they run the ball in early downs. And really, half the time, you're essentially behind the sticks. That's not a good way to set up your passing offense. That's not a good way to set up your next carry. If it's 2nd and 8, you're probably not handing the ball off. But if you hand it off for 2 yards again, the most common outcome, now it's 3rd and 6. Good luck. Drop back, Daniel Jones. You are going to go up against 2 pass rushers who know you're throwing the football. Again, we'll talk about that more on Only Weird Games today. Seth did all of the work in writing it out in the newsletter. I think that's fascinating, and I figured you would think it's very interesting because it really pokes a hole in this idea that if you just hand it off, and you mentioned like the yards per carry or whatever, if you just hand it off 15 times and you're getting 3.3 yards a carry, you're just going to move the chains all the way down the field. That's not how it works. That is being a bit reductive. And if you get a 15-yard run, that's great, but most likely you're going to end up with 4 yards or less on a carry. It's not a very, and it's no guarantee that you're going to get 4 or 5. It's a very high risk, low reward way of doing it when you think about the value of early downs. Of course, you can toss up a first down incompletion, makes it 2nd and 10. That's too bad. But there is not a run button that you can press enough to win by default. And I think a lot of people still have issues with that.
Yeah. I was trying to do some math in my head. Like you had a 20-yard run, and then all of a sudden you have 3, 2, 2, and 2-yard runs, right?
Yep.
So that's 26 yards. Well, you're sitting here going, well, that's 2.5 first downs, right? That's 4 times 26 divided by 4. That's 5, 6.5 yards a carry. Why don't you run the football more? Well, because you're being bolstered by the outlier.
Because you just went 4 and out with a 25-yard run and then 2, 2, and 2. There's a comment from Phantom in the chat that says effectively rushing the ball keeps the defense off balance, keeps your quarterback healthy. I don't know if there's anything there related to keeping the quarterback healthy, but I will say effectively is doing a lot of work there because running it for 2 yards, 3 yards, and 1 yard, and then punting on 4th and 1 is not doing anything to benefit your team at all. You do want to be able to run when the defense is daring you to. It's kind of an inverse of a lot of the NFL of years past, where absolutely, if you get a light box and you've been going bombs away, but you get a light box on first down, hand it off. I think Seth uses the example of hand it off or let your offense take those DBs downfield, and then Mahomes will scramble for 12 yards. Like, that's all very good and very valid. But there is not like a mandatory minimum that you have to hit in terms of handing the ball off to make defenses believe that it's going to happen. We've seen the research now that you do not have to have an effective running game for the play action game to still be effective in terms of what a linebacker who's been doing that step toward the hole since they were 12 years old, the first time they put on a helmet. You get a play action, it's going to be their instinct to bite on the run there, unless they've seen something that, recognize something they've seen on tape or whatever it may be. So there is value to running when it's smart. And I'm not saying that the comment is even going the other direction on this, but just some of those words are such big buzzwords in this conversation. There is absolutely value to running the football when it's smart. I think for a long time, conventional wisdom has been, it's good to run the football even when it isn't smart. And that, I think, is a narrative that we can begin to chip away at over time and find the value again. And frankly, make running the football a more important, fun part of the game again. I think that's still fun and valid. We just have to change the terms.
And the Chiefs did a little bit last year with Isaiah Pacheco. Pacheco was a great fit for how they operate just because of his physicality and his ability to get downhill relatively quickly, right?
If you have a defense that's matching up for your quick little receivers,
exactly,
and so you have a smaller defense across from you, then yes, your chances of Isaiah Pacheco picking up 5 or 6 yards might be better than the net average of a 14% chance of a 5 or a 6 yard run, because the defense is showing you, hey, you ought to actually run it here because we're playing for the other thing. That's where the value comes in.
And that's the whole point, is finding the value in the run game, trying to have some nuance in regards to what the Chiefs, and again, I think the Chiefs actually, even with what we know, I think that I would like the Chiefs to run the ball a little bit more, right? I think there are times when they go away from what's actually being effective on the ground, and
which depends on, again, the context of how the offense is performing. I mean, last year, it would have been nice to have a more effective running game because you couldn't trust your receivers.
and because it comes from lighter boxes, right? And that's a little bit of the game plan, which is how we transition before we play a quick game of this or that.
Can I give you one Mahomes stat really quick? I'm sorry that I'm finding this so late. Yards gained per pass attempt last year, Mahomes had his career low, 7.0. Not per completion, per attempt. It's 10.4 yards per completion. If you're averaging, and again, average is not the right thing to use as we're going. I don't have his little bell curve thing that the analytics guys did for running the football, but you're getting 7 yards or more 10% of the time when you run the football. Mahomes is doing that on average. So if you throw the ball on first down and it's incomplete, but it's 2nd and 10, he still has 2 shots to get a total of 10 yards, something he is doing on average every 1.75 pass attempts or something like that. So I think it's interesting. Not everybody does, but we do. Sterling and I like it. Sorry, what's your last point? Sorry, Stu.
Well, I was so fascinatingly interrupted by a great point that I actually found interesting.
I thought you'd like it.
I actually liked that a lot. I did like it. I was going to transition and talk about how this affects the Chiefs running backs because
good luck, man. I'm still sad about it.
I'm confused. I'm befuddled. I love Pacheco, but having him play 17 to 20 games a year seems like it's going to be a foolhardy endeavor.
Derrick Henry is in a running back by committee now. The entire league is, except for Isaiah Pacheco.
Hey, Clyde's a fine backup. I said the word fine. I mean
and
fine.
You're being kind.
Yeah, I mean fine. Fine.
Below average. I would argue
sure.
that fine is an average backup. I think he's a below average.
That's fair. He's fine. I don't care. Carson Steele. What? I'm intrigued, but he's not your RB2. That doesn't make a lot of sense. Imani Bailey, are you rolling with the rookie? And again, I think it's a little unfair for how poorly he tested because the test does not seemingly go with what we saw on screen from Bailey, right? And that's the hope. But I guess I'm just a little perplexed with, again, you and I were talking about running, and I think, again, the big lifting, and it's fair, effectively running the football, especially when we expect the Chiefs to have a little more pace and space, if you will, with the receivers. So you should see some lighter boxes. The run game actually might be a little more important this year than potentially in years past, which means balance, which means I want a damn RB2 on this team. And maybe I'm just overreacting and screaming into the void and going against all the analytics that I say I love. But
no, you're not.
Again,
you're not.
With nuance, there has to be some. And I think a reliable RB2 who is physical and yet who can catch the ball out of the backfield would have made some sense, which is, again, why Austin Eckler, not being a Kansas City Chief, is going to always get my goat. Sorry.
I get it. No, I don't think it's anti-analytical to wish that your team had a second decent running back, because that's kind of the point of running backs don't matter. I'm putting that in air quotes. It's been a bit co-opted over the years, but the idea of that is that as long as you have NFL average running backs in a stable, one of them will probably overperform a little bit. Somebody's going to get hurt and, underperform. And ultimately you're going to end up with the culmination of an average NFL running back. And you could do it on rookie contracts, on vet minimum deals, borderline, etc. The Chiefs right now don't have that in terms of bodies. Like you mentioned in Clyde, we are of the same mindset, I think, when people talk about Clyde as a backup and then ask what, you got Isaiah Pacheco and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. What else do the Chiefs need? I say a running back 2, because Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he might be a fine 3. Maybe. I don't know. We haven't really seen him run the ball effectively in a long time. He's not the pass protector that Jerick McKinnon is, or was at least. I don't know. Maybe that reunion's still on the table. And he's not a pass protection monster. Like, he can be fine there probably, but it's a weird group. I'm seeing some names come through already. Like, I could see maybe a camp cut down that the Chiefs bring somebody in. And as a member of the cult of people who thinks that you can generally replace one running back with the stable of running backs, you just went through the list and didn't mention Louis Rees-Zammit, by the way, which I think is the correct thing to do when we're talking about being an NFL running back, which he is not right now. That's not his fault. He just got here. By here, I mean the American sport. But that group to me is thin enough, as we saw last year when Pacheco and Jerick McKinnon were out. The Chiefs gave like 1 or 2 total carries to LaMichael Pirine. He's not on the team anymore. They were not like, oh, it's fine. We can just get Deneric Prince in there and he'll figure it out. And maybe in year 2, maybe Deneric Prince can do some of the Pacheco things if he gets hurt. Maybe it is Keontae Ingram, who's now been with the team for the 3rd longest of any. No, that's not true, because I guess Prince would have been there longer too. But Ingram has now been with the team for longer than the other direct newcomers. Maybe he can do some Jerick McKinnon-y things. I just am surprised they didn't throw a few more numbers at it in terms of guys you've seen do it before, and you hope you get your career renaissance. I joked these names on Weird Games one of the last couple of shows, like, where's Carlos Hyde at? Where's who was the other vet who just Ronald Jones? It was those two. It was where's
Carlos
Ronald
Hyde has to be 40.
Yeah, I don't mean literally. Sorry, let me clarify. In years past, they have brought in a veteran running back who was there for insulation, who was there for a buffer. And to say again, Ronald Jones, Carlos Hyde, whatever. Ronald Jones got a get off the plane photo shoot from the Chiefs at that point in free agency. They have made sure they've had a vet they felt like they could rely on in a worst case scenario. This roster doesn't have one of those. Carlos Hyde and Ronald Jones were not important members of the team. Melvin Ingram.
Guess how old Carlos Hyde is.
Melvin Gordon. Sorry. Melvin Gordon got a ring and didn't play, right? Carlos Hyde's probably 32.
Hey, he's 33.
I can live with that.
Sure feels like he's 40 right about now.
Running backs age differently.
He's not played since 2021.
You've got to shave years off because of how you think about running backs aging compared to almost any other position. So that's the thing I'm surprised by, is that there isn't a Carlos Hyde, Melvin Gordon, Ronald Jones-esque type of player just in the mix with the rest of the guys.
You know what's absolutely hilarious of a guy who I think would have actually made sense in Kansas City? I mentioned Austin Eckler. That was, I think, again, I understand he's not super effective and some of the analytics don't love him. I just love the fact that he's got I hate saying this, a nose for the end zone, but he's a great pass catcher out of the backfield. He would have been a great third down back. He's done it a lot.
His cap hit this year is only $3.2 million, and then it's barely guaranteed. There's only $1.5 million guaranteed next year. It's a little less than I thought he got.
I've just always liked Austin Eckler, so that was kind of my guy. You want to hear a stupid name that I think actually would have made a lot of sense?
Yeah, is it Jeremy Poops a lot? You said a stupid name, and so I was the dumbest name I could think of. Or is it Sterling Guthrie Holmes? You got a great name, and you know this.
Ezekiel Elliott.
That's a great name.
You know who would have made sense? I feel like so dumb saying that Zeke would have made sense at this point in his career.
It's kind of the Ronald Jones move. I mean, yeah, it's like he wasn't going to add elements to the offense, but you could probably hand him the ball on 3rd and 2.
And you damn well know that guy's going to pass protect. I'm not even kidding.
I forgot he's back in Dallas.
Yeah,
again. I forgot that happened. Yeah.
Zeke would have. I hate it, but Zeke would have actually made sense on what the Chiefs are kind of looking for: a physical back who can catch and who's a great pass protector. Is he going to bust you off a 15-yard run? No, I don't know if he can run 15 yards anymore. But you know he's going to sit back there and protect Mahomes. You know he can catch the ball. You know he can go up the gut for a couple yards and fall forward. I honestly thought Zeke would have made more sense on the Chiefs this year, but yet here we are with here we are.
Chat liked my joke. Here we are with Isaiah Pacheco, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and Jeremy Poops a lot.
Your mom says I love nicknames.
My mom's here. My mom thought that was funny.
Hi, Mrs. Brisco. I love that you followed me since your journey, my journey.
She hadn't been here for every other Arrowhead Addict episode before I started doing these with you.
Surprisingly not, but she ever since I started doing almost entirely sports with you on ESPN Kansas City, baby.
She's just here hoping that Verderam shows up. She actually didn't. She was a little disappointed to see that either of us were here.
Yeah.
She was hoping for Matt Connor, Matt Verderam. Refers
Literally
to
any
Matts.
other Matt. Any person named Matt. All right. We're going to play a game called This or That.
How's it work?
I'll give you a couple options.
Uh-huh.
And you'll pick one of the options.
That sounds great.
I was at a bachelor party this weekend.
I can tell.
I'm still tired.
Yeah.
If you want to ask me any questions, I'd love that. Because all of these ones are off the top of my dome.
Hell yeah, dude. All right, I'll try to return fire. My mom says hi, by the way. Also, again, just the chat loved my joke. Cannot stress that.
All right, since your mom's here, your mom or your dad?
You want me to... Hey, Sterling, your mom or your dad?
The answer is both. It's like Miller
My
Lite.
dad's not watching,
It's
so
both.
pretty easy for me.
Wow. Good call.
Dun, 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 dun.
All right, Lake
What drink is at fault?
Lake
The music
Beers.
gone? Does the music not continue?
I don't have a long enough.
Just keep hitting the button, man. It's so important for the vibe. You're trying to make me pick between my parents and then
Lake
ripping the
beers or
music bit
pool
out.
beers.
Say that again. Sorry.
That's why I don't have the music on, Brisco.
No, I was talking.
Lake beers or pool beers?
I asked you a question that you refused to answer.
What's the question?
I'll take Lake beers, and then
They were smooth.
My question for you is, what beverage is at fault for the fact that you're still tired from your bachelor party?
It wasn't my bachelor party. It was my friend's bachelor
That's
party.
what I meant to imply. I assume that I will be there for your bachelor party.
38. 38 ounce. Yeah. When was yours? 38 ounce
Sure you got
margarita.
invited. A what?
38 ounce margarita.
Just one of them? One of them gave you a 3-day hangover?
No.
Okay,
That was the
so
60 beers. That was
How
the
many-
60 Busch Lights.
you did not drink 60 Busch Lights this weekend. You put up stats sometimes. I want to know your stat line, dude.
It was a Wilt Chamberlain weekend. Wilt
I should
Chamberlain.
tell your
weekend.
fiance. Yeah.
Zulu says, "Let's talk football." I'm sorry, there's nothing else to talk.
Zulu, you got good news, buddy. Just go ahead and grab that little slider and go back about 40 minutes. You got about 40 minutes of uninterrupted Chiefs defense talk. Now we're going to talk about Sterling's hangover for about 30 seconds. We're going to call it a show.
Yeah.
Dun, 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 dun.
Left Twix, right Twix.
Left Twix. Real favorite. The ice cream Twix bars. Immaculate frozen ice cream treat available at a grocery store near you. Also, not super carby for some reason. A lot of dairy in there.
James says, "Any comments on Mike Florio?"
No. Did he do something else? There's a chance he did something else since this.
Yeah, he did the whole
Episode
Mahomes thing with the whole, is he going to retire
was
at
like-
30?
yeah.
But now that he's almost
Creeping-
30, which is like 2 years
creeping
away from
toward
30.
You're
Like,
creeping
what?
past 30.
Bleep you, Brisco.
I'm creeping toward 30 as well.
Yeah, I think Mike Florio is a.
Matt
that's a
Derrick
shock move, man.
said that Mike Florio is creeping toward death. So I thought that was the best retort I had seen. Mahomes is creeping toward 30. Florio is creeping towards death.
No, I'm not hungover now, Joshua. Not you, Joshua Brisco.
Different
Joshua Z. No, that's just like 3 days ago. I'm just tired because I was at the lake from Thursday to Sunday.
Give me your stat line, you coward.
It was a lot. I don't know. Some margaritas, some Weller bourbon, a lot of Busch Light.
Was it really Busch Light? I got to put your feet to the fire on this one and figure out
Yeah,
what
it was.
your beer spread actually.
It was mostly Busch Light and a couple Miller Lights with a couple Mick Ultras thrown there because I was healthy for good measure.
Yeah, good. It's all a part of a balanced diet.
Yeah, sure.
Video
was.
games or board games?
Board games.
Best board game you've played within the last 3 months?
Ooh,
Not to be specific. Just give me a game.
Ticket to Ride.
I do like Ticket to Ride a lot. The mobile version, not terrible if you don't have enough friends to play board games with you, but now that's a video board game.
Scale to 1 to 10. How worried are you about the punter situation in Kansas City?
I like a 2. They basically decided it was over when they signed the Montana defensive tackle, I think, and they cut the punter who's not Ariza. So it seems like it's just a one-man competition right now. Maybe they bring somebody else in training camp. I'm not really worried about it.
Scale
How hot is too hot to be outside for a little outdoor party? Given, let me say this, let me amend this. Given a Midwestern Kansas Cityan humidity.
Well, 103. 103.
Brother, it's 96 outside in a 70% humidity right now. Go walk outside and tell me you want to be out there. That's crazy.
Yeah, I've been there. But
Bad.
I'm
Too
an
wet.
adult.
You enjoy that?
Yeah, I don't mind it.
You would rather... Where is the degree number where you would rather drink a Busch Light inside as opposed to outside?
The limit does not exist.
Okay, very good.
Carson Wentz, will he be used on any QB sneaks this year?
Not outside of if he was playing like week 18 or something. I don't know why. I would love for them to change that up. I just don't think that Andy is interested in doing any cutesy stuff there. I understand not wanting to take Patrick Mahomes off the field since we're mentioning that. But imagine just let Mahomes split out wide. Eventually he will catch a pass. Eventually he'll run in a reverse little orbit motion and let him take the snap and he can throw it to somebody else. I would love to see more Calvin ball with Mahomes and Wentz.
Brisco.
Yeah.
He got an E.
You got the E. The E is a huge, listen here, James. Listen here, you take the E, well, then now this is here, so you can't see it. You put in, take the E off the end of my name and ask that question again. You disrespectful. The question was, you're always a giggly hyped. Are you on a Skittles diet?
That's pretty good.
Funny you should ask, James. I'm on about the opposite of a Skittles diet on account of the diabetes. I will enjoy some
Say
Skittles.
it correctly.
Because the diabetes.
Thank you.
So I also don't always have this much energy, but sometimes you get framed up with Sterling and you think either you're going to look at me with the energy that I have, or they're going to look at Sterling's mustache just hanging out there. And I'm like, I gotta compete with that tombstone ass mustache.
It's hard.
Not an ass mustache. Tombstone dash ass.
Mustache. Good call. Good call. I think I asked this last week, but better chance of extension, Trey Smith. You know what? No, cut it. Better chance of extension, Nick Bolton, Creed Humphrey.
Creed.
Is that what you want, or that's what you think?
It's actually both. It is actually 100% both. I think Creed. I think it makes a lot of sense for Creeds to get done before training camp, and it sounds like that's probably not happening. And I really think for Bolton, and I think if Bolton hits free agency, it'll be more of and this is now me talking myself into what I want to happen. I could see them Mike Danleying it a little bit and be like, all right, man, hit the market, holler back, let us know what you get. As opposed to, I think Trey Smith, I just think is going to hit the market and get a huge bag of money somewhere else. And God bless him. I hope he gets 3 Super Bowl rings and then a massive contract. Worst ways to start your NFL career. So I'm certainly hoping for the best for all of them, but I think Creed gets it done in Kansas City first.
With Blake Bell gone, is there no longer a Belldozer type of play? And if so, what do the Chiefs do in those situations?
Yeah, I don't think that's happening either. I'm just kind of I think running plays, maybe handoffs, arguably would be my hunch, but it's with Isaiah Pacheco or Deneric Prince.
I'm so over
James. I forgive you. James is now apologizing for remembering that. Now just never remembering I'm diabetic
James.
And spelling my name correctly. James, it's totally fine.
A
lot of that Skittles energy that just came out was just me making a villain out of you, and I really didn't mean to. And so just know, James T. Kirk, or if I could call you Captain, just remember we're all good here.
I'm just excited that Blake Bell's not on the roster for the simple fact that now they can't run the Belldozer play. That's the only reason.
Yeah, no, it's not fun. No, the Chiefs offense is the most fun thing in sports for the first 9 yards of each down, and then it's the least fun thing in sports.
Get Carson Wentz and rock the tush push and call it a day.
I'm at least intrigued by that. Jared Wiley is 6'50", so I feel like he could probably. He's got reach, but not the Belldozian thickness.
All right, my final this or that. I don't know if you have any more. Final one for Jared Wiley. Over under 500 yards receiving for him this year.
Under. I am excited about him, but I think that's a huge ask for a rookie tight end. You reacted very strongly to that. Tell me why, and let me Google one thing, and then I'll ask you one more this or that, and then we can depart.
I don't really have any strong thoughts. I think you're probably right. I feel like everyone's so high on Jared Wiley. It feels like he is the new fun toy offensively that's somewhat getting I don't want to say forgotten about in the national media, but it does feel like a lot of Chiefs fans have really
That'll come
talked
out in training camp, I think.
highly about Jared Wiley. I think he's tied in 3. I do, but I've seen a lot of folk on the Twitter sphere talk about how he's tied in 2, and
oh no, I disagree with that.
I do. Oh, I do too. I think Noah Gray,
regardless of that, last year's tight end 2 in a year where the Chiefs desperately needed more pass catchers they could rely on.
421.
Patrick Mahomes had one off. No, Patrick Mahomes needed more pass catching weapons. He needed reliable pass catchers. And last year, Noah Gray had 28 receptions for 305 yards, and that was a career high in both. The year before was actually 28 for 299. So Noah Gray's averaged about 300 yards the last 2 years, and that's in year 2 and 3 in the offense and with fewer pass catchers around him last year. I thought you were going to say 5 touchdowns for Jared Wiley, and I would still take the under on that. That's still a lot. But I think there is a path for him to be very fun and maybe annoying to like fantasy managers, but still very good. Last one for me, Sterling. What was your childhood computer game? Did you ever, especially any of the online like MMOs, were you a RuneScape kid? Did you?
What
play
does MMO stand for?
Massively multiplayer online. There we go. Took a while. Thank you, Richard. Richard also came through. My brain froze. I just said the acronym, and I haven't been tested on that in so long because I mostly talk to people under the age of 95, but I understand that you're here. RuneScape, Club Penguin, Neopets. Were you a Webkins kid? I don't know. Any of those ever? Did you just walk out of the womb with a golf club? Did you just pop out and go straight to the putting green?
I played sports. I don't know.
I also played sports. What else did you do? Were you drinking Busch Light?
I was reading books, drinking Busch Light, and shooting hoops.
Well, it's really paid off, Sterling, because you're the most athletic beer drinker I know now.
No, man, I didn't really play many video games. I guess I would say I played solitaire.
I'd say that's really sad, but that's what Renee's playing the most right now is just solitaire on her phone.
Or
Hot Wheels.
A run. I played Hot Wheels. I was a little Hot Wheel. I like some like racing games. Those are fun.
Those were great. Well, remember they ever play the Tonka games, any of the Jump Start games? I don't know.
Wasn't a big video game kid. Not really for me.
Well, sure was fun, Stu. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, I guess I don't know where we leave this. I feel. All right, this was the Arrowhead Addict podcast, where apparently I just don't know anything about video games. I'm here for the.
I brought you this or that questions in return, and you gave me nothing.
I had nothing to give.
M&M's or Skittles?
Skittles.
Snickers or Twix?
Twix.
Milky Way or Three Musketeers?
Three Musketeers.
Is that because you don't know what they are, or because
no? I like both. I actually like both Milky Ways and Three Musketeers. I just don't really go after either, but I enjoy both.
Three Musketeers are underrated, I think. Especially, you don't need a full bar of that. We're adults here, but like the little minis, you get around Halloween, little one bites, just chocolate and nougat. That's all right. Sterling, this was a blast here on the Arrowhead Addict podcast. You can catch me at about 4:30 over on KC Sports Network on their feed. Me and Seth Kaiser are doing Only Weird Games. Usually Nate Taylor is there, but he's on an international adventure, so it's me and Seth for a little bit. And you can follow me on social media at JB Brisco. Thanks for having me, Sterling.
Yeah, Brisco, I will see you not next Tuesday because I will be in Tahoe. I'll be in Lake Tahoe. So I will be taking next Tuesday off, but we'll return with a little more Chiefs news and a little more fun Chiefs stuff to talk about. So until then, we are out.